90% of Ferrari didn't want Hamilton, claims former F1 driver. Lewis Hamilton exaggerates problems. As Ferrari boss questions extreme reaction, Hamilton ground effect theory debunked after Wolff questioned driving style. Fred Vasseur really angry as Ferrari boss makes feelings clear over turmoil. You thought Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari would finally silence the doubters, that at last Maranello had given him the platform to chase history. But what if I told you the biggest fight Lewis is facing right now isn't with Verstappen, Norris, or Leclerc? It's inside Ferrari itself. This could change everything, because even as Lewis calls himself useless and questions whether Ferrari should replace him, Fred Vasseur has stepped in with a message that flips the entire narrative on its head. Not only is he defending Hamilton, he's saying Lewis exaggerates the problems and that his extreme outbursts are actually part of what makes him great. Let's break this down. 14 races in, and Hamilton still hasn't tasted the podium in red. His lowest moment came in Hungary, 12th on the grid, while Charles Leclerc put the other Ferrari on pole. After qualifying, Lewis was brutal on himself. "I'm useless, absolutely useless." He even hinted Ferrari should look for someone else. And when race day ended with another 12th place, he said, "There's a lot going on in the background that's not great." Now here's the twist. Fred Vasseur, who knows Hamilton better than almost anyone, isn't panicking. He told Auto, Motor, and Sport, "Lewis is very self-critical. He is always extreme in his reactions. Sometimes too hard on the car, sometimes too hard on himself. Most of the time, he's only that extreme with the press. By the time he comes into the briefing room, he's calmed down again. That's just his way." And Vasseur isn't stopping there. He points out that in Hungary, Hamilton was just a 10th behind Leclerc in Q2. A 10th, that's nothing in Formula One. But Lewis's words magnified the gap into a crisis. Here's why this matters for the whole championship picture. In modern F1, perception is almost as powerful as performance. If Hamilton, a 7-time champion, tells the world Ferrari is broken, sponsors, fans, even engineers start to believe it. Confidence collapses, momentum disappears. In a single 10th of a second, the difference between Q2 and Q3 can reshape an entire season. Ferrari can't afford that psychological collapse when McLaren are flying, Red Bull are fighting for stability, and Mercedes are waiting for 2026. But the deeper story here is Ferrari's culture clash. Hamilton is a perfectionist. He came from Mercedes, where systems were refined to the last detail. At Maranello, things are different. The car has quirks, like the braking system. According to La Gazzetta dello Sport, Hamilton is still struggling with Ferrari's unique engine braking, plus new Brembo components. That exact system may have caused his spin at Spa. For Lewis, it feels catastrophic. For Vasseur, it's half a tenth. This is the conflict. Ferrari say the problems are small. Hamilton reacts like they're massive. Who's right? And this is where it becomes about more than just lap times. Hamilton isn't just another Ferrari signing. He's trying to rewrite history. He doesn't want to be remembered as the champion who faded away in red. He wants to succeed where Schumacher, Alonso, and Vettel all stumbled. To conquer Ferrari's chaos and leave a legacy that no one can deny. So when he exaggerates problems, maybe it's not weakness, maybe it's pressure. The pressure of trying to bend Maranello to his will, of forcing Ferrari to evolve before time runs out. But here's the risk. What if Ferrari don't respond? What if Hamilton's words only fracture the garage, creating tension instead of progress? And what if 2026, the year of the reset, arrives before Lewis ever finds his footing? If that happens, history could turn cruel. The greatest driver of his era left stranded by the most political team in the sport. So the question is Hamilton truly exaggerating? Or is he simply the only one willing to shout loud enough to wake Ferrari up before it's too late? You thought Lewis Hamilton's struggles were down to one simple truth, that after 2022, his legendary driving style just didn't fit Formula One's new ground effect cars. But what if I told you that theory has just been debunked? Because if Hamilton's problem isn't about driving style, then this changes everything. It means his career isn't being limited by physics, but by circumstance. And circumstances can change. This isn't just a question of speed on track. It's about adaptation, environment, and timing. And that opens the door to a very different future. Let's start with the evidence. When ground effect aerodynamics returned in 2022, Mercedes got it badly wrong. The car bounced violently, suffering from porpoising, and Hamilton, despite his skill, couldn't tame a machine that was fundamentally flawed. Still, the narrative emerged. Maybe Hamilton's natural style, his late braking, his corner rotation, his precision just didn't suit these new cars. Fast forward to 2025, and Toto Wolff himself doubled down on that idea in Hungary. He suggested Hamilton's struggles might be linked to driving style, that maybe the seven-time champion was fighting against the physics of the new era. But then Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur shut that theory down. Speaking to Auto, Motor and Sport, Vasseur was crystal clear. Hamilton's war isn't against ground effect. If we had bouncing, maybe, Vasseur said, but now we have it under control. That's not the issue. So why is Hamilton struggling? Let's look at the numbers. In qualifying at Budapest, Hamilton was ahead of Leclerc in Q1. In Q2, he was just a tenth slower, and when the margin shrunk, he missed out on Q3 by 15 thousandths of a second. That's less than the blink of an eye. Suddenly, one Ferrari was on pole with Leclerc, and the other was stuck in 12th. From the outside, it looked like a disaster, but in reality, the gap was microscopic. This pattern has repeated across the season. Leclerc has 5 podiums, a pole position, and 42 points more in the standings. Hamilton, no podiums, no champagne, and a self-critical meltdown where he called himself useless, absolutely useless. The contrast is brutal, but the truth is more complicated. It's about transition. Because this isn't just Hamilton versus Leclerc, it's Hamilton versus an entirely new environment. After 18 seasons with English-based teams, McLaren and Mercedes, Hamilton moved to Italy. He left behind the comfort zone of familiar engineers, familiar engines, familiar systems. He stepped into Ferrari, a team defined by passion, politics, and pressure. As Vasseur admitted, we naively thought Lewis would have everything under control. But it wasn't that simple. This wasn't just another team switch. It was a cultural reset, a technical reset, a psychological reset. And in Formula One, resets take time. What looks like a gap to Leclerc today could become a strength tomorrow. Because Hamilton isn't just adapting to a car, he's adapting to Ferrari itself. Here lies the conflict. Hamilton is 40 years old. He's not Carlos Sainz, used to bouncing between teams every few years. He's a driver who built dynasties in stable environments, and now for the first time in almost 2 decades, he's the outsider, the veteran who has to learn the ropes all over again. Every mistake feels bigger. Every missed opportunity looks final. In his own words, maybe Ferrari needs to change driver, reveal the depth of his frustration. But here's the bigger picture. Hamilton's story has never been about easy victories. It's about resilience. It's about coming back when people wrote him off. 2008, the rookie champion. 2013, mocked for leaving McLaren, then turning Mercedes into a dynasty. 2021, robbed of a title, yet refusing to quit. Now in Ferrari red, Hamilton's battle is not just for podiums, it's for legacy. Because if he can conquer the chaos of Maranello, if he can adapt to the most political, unpredictable team in Formula One, then his story won't just be about numbers. It will be about transformation. It will be about proving that greatness isn't confined to eras or regulations. Still, let's be realistic. The risks are real. Hamilton may never fully master the Ferrari environment. The points gap to Leclerc could grow. The frustration could erode his motivation. And if Ferrari's 2026 project fails, then Hamilton's final years could slip away without that fairy tale ending. But ask yourself, if anyone can turn frustration into fire, isn't it Lewis Hamilton? So the real question is this: is Hamilton's struggle a sign of decline? Or is it simply the painful beginning of one last epic reinvention? You thought Ferrari rolled out the red carpet for Lewis Hamilton, that his move to Maranello was a perfect fairy tale, the dream of every driver dressed in red. But what if I told you, according to a former Ferrari driver, 90% of the team didn't even want him there? And here's the twist. This could change everything, because what looks like rejection on the surface might actually set the stage for one of the most dramatic comebacks in Formula One history. Because if Hamilton has built his legacy on anything, it's proving people wrong. Let's dive into the evidence. Arturo Merzario, a Ferrari driver from the 1970s, just dropped a bombshell in the Italian press. He claims Hamilton's arrival in Maranello wasn't a racing decision, but a commercial operation. In his words, 90% of Ferrari's workforce didn't approve of the signing. And look at what's happened so far. Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, 103-time race winner, still hasn't stood on the podium in red. In Hungary, his frustration boiled over. He called himself useless, absolutely useless, after qualifying only 12th, while Charles Leclerc put the sister Ferrari on pole. Hamilton even said live on TV, Ferrari probably need to change driver. But here's where it gets fascinating. Merzario admits Hamilton still has all the talent in the world. He just doesn't feel integrated, valued, or part of the Ferrari machine. And when a driver loses that connection, he loses the motivation to dig for those last 3/10. This isn't just about one bad qualifying session or one frustrated radio message. This is about the future of Ferrari and the balance of power in Formula One. Because if the most successful driver of the modern era can't thrive at Maranello, what does that say about Ferrari's culture? And what does it mean for the 2025 and 2026 championship fights, especially with regulation changes looming? The real battle isn't Hamilton versus Leclerc. It's Hamilton versus Ferrari itself, a team that prides itself on tradition, politics, and internal loyalty, facing a driver who has always thrived in environments built around trust and stability. Merzario's words expose the truth. If most of Ferrari didn't want Hamilton, then he's not just racing rivals on the grid. He's racing against the very walls of Maranello. But let's remember what Hamilton's career has always been about. From McLaren to Mercedes, every chapter of his story has been defined by doubt and then defiance. People said he couldn't beat Alonso as a rookie. He nearly won the title. People said leaving McLaren for Mercedes was career suicide. He built a dynasty. Now they say Ferrari is destroying him. But imagine the legacy if he flips this script. If Hamilton can take a divided Ferrari, a team that doubted him from the inside, and turn them into winners, that would be the greatest redemption arc the sport has ever seen. Of course, there are risks. Hamilton is 40 years old, the car is inconsistent, and the politics at Ferrari are brutal. If he doesn't find a way to shift the culture and regain belief, not just in the car, but in himself, then this dream move could go down as the biggest misstep of his career. So the question is, will Lewis Hamilton become the man Ferrari never truly wanted, or the legend who forced Maranello to believe again? You thought Ferrari was about to implode, that Fred Vasseur was on the brink of being replaced, that the chaos inside Maranello was too much for anyone to control. But what if I told you the man at the center of the storm wasn't leaving at all? In fact, he was doubling down? This could change everything. Because just before the Hungarian Grand Prix, Ferrari announced that Fred Vasseur had signed a brand new multi-year contract. A deal that not only silenced the rumors, but also locked in Ferrari's leadership during one of the most unstable periods in modern F1. And here's the twist. Behind the scenes, Vasseur wasn't calm and collected. He was furious. According to Vasseur himself, the rumors that started during the Canadian Grand Prix weekend in June went too far. Italian media claimed Ferrari was considering replacing him after a winless start to 2025. Some reports even linked Antonello Coletta, head of Ferrari's WEC program, as a potential successor. Others whispered that Ferrari had already sounded out Christian Horner, just months before his dramatic exit from Red Bull. But what made Vasseur really angry wasn't just his own name being dragged through the headlines. It was that the speculation spilled over into attacks on his technical director, Loic Serra, a man who had only joined in October, long after the 2025 car was designed. It even reignited fake rumors about Charles Leclerc leaving Ferrari for Mercedes, despite Leclerc himself repeatedly confirming a long-term deal. For Vasseur, this wasn't just media noise. It was destabilizing the team, undermining trust, and delaying his own contract negotiations. Now think about what this means for Ferrari's championship ambitions. In 2023, under Vasseur, Ferrari was the only team besides Red Bull to win a race. Singapore, thanks to Carlos Sainz. In 2024, they came within 14 points of McLaren in the constructors' fight. And yet, in 2025, the pressure has boiled over because the Scuderia is still chasing consistency. If Ferrari collapses under media pressure now, what hope do they have when 2026 arrives? With new engines, new cars, and a completely fresh playing field? Inside Ferrari, emotions run hot. The Italian media amplify every rumor, fans demand instant success, and whispers of instability spread like wildfire. Vasseur admitted that, in Italy, people tend to react more emotionally. And when headlines question not just leadership, but the future of Charles Leclerc, the very foundation of Ferrari's project feels under attack. The truth is, Ferrari has always been a team where politics can kill performance faster than a slow pit stop. But this contract extension is more than just a deal, it's a statement. Ferrari's CEO, Benedetto Vigna, called it a recognition of what has been built and a commitment to what still needs to be achieved. For Ferrari, keeping Vasseur is a bet on stability, something the Scuderia hasn't had in decades. Think about it. Constant leadership changes destroyed momentum after Jean Todt and Ross Brawn left. Now, for the first time in years, Ferrari is trying to build a legacy of continuity. And if it works, Vasseur could be remembered not as the man who cracked under pressure, but the one who rebuilt Ferrari into a powerhouse for the modern era. But let's not get carried away. Yes, Ferrari came close in 2024. Yes, Vasseur has silenced the rumors. For now. But the truth is, without wins, contracts mean nothing. If 2025 continues as a winless campaign, stability could look like stagnation. If Hamilton keeps struggling in the SF25, even the best political stability won't deliver a championship. And if McLaren or Mercedes keep rising, Ferrari could risk becoming an expensive afterthought. So here's the real question. Has Ferrari finally found the leadership stability it needs to fight for titles again? Or is this just another chapter in the endless cycle of promises, pressure, and heartbreak at Maranello? What do you think? Can Fred Vasseur survive the storm and actually deliver the Ferrari Hamilton and Leclerc need? Or will the politics eat him alive like so many bosses before him? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know where you stand.